And it was cool just learning about people's experiences. And, that's what kind of inspired me to start the podcast because I was thinking, I'm like, these are the kind of things people are craving, like everyone wants this sort of break from, especially being online. I know a lot of people felt this just burnout in general from working, because people at first thought it was like, oh, you're working from home, you'll have a better work. In five, four, three, two, one. Hey guys, welcome back to the Way Podcast with your host Sajid Merwar. This week we have a brand new guest. Nicole Ho-Sang is joining us today. And yeah, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Sujin. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. I am a coach and wellness enthusiast. I practice a lot of holistic approach to lifestyle, and I started in the personal training field, and I transitioned as a digital coach, where I focus more now on mindset and lifestyle habits. And I've recently niched into the entrepreneurial space where I coach entrepreneurs and I help them arrive at a holistically healthy place where they can align their goals and their values with their actions and their behaviors. So I find I meet a lot of um, aspiring, ambitious, uh, introspective people who are seeking personal growth, and they've identified that there might be an area that they need to improve, but they're not quite sure what their next appropriate steps are. And that's usually when I step in. They elect me to be somewhat of a guide where I can highlight anything symbolic in their behavior that might represent a bit of a block that's stopping them from seeing themselves in that higher version of themselves. So yes, Nicole Ho-Sang, and I coined myself the energy coach on account of I recognize now and everything is energy, and so in the space of time management, money management, holistic health overall, I just like to look at it as energy management, and so uh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome. So, um, yeah, I guess I'll start off with how'd you get into this sort of personal coaching space? What was your journey into this? Where you got to now?
Yes, I think it started quite some time ago in my youth when as an eldest of four children in my family, I find I took on a leadership role just authentically. It's something I was born into by nature of being the eldest sibling. And so what I found was I was always being called to lead by example. My parents are also both the eldest in their family with their siblings. And it was very natural, expected step for me. So I was always encouraged to lead through example. And as I grew up, I started to come to a place where I recognized people were looking to me as a guide in their own lives. A lot of people would ask my opinion on their experience or ask my opinion on what they aspire to do in their decision making process. And so I started to see that there's a little bit more weight behind how I communicated my opinions to people. And once I was comfortable in that space, I recognized that coaching was a good uh, career path. So I didn't know that it was something I could do until university when I was pursuing my own personal fitness and personal growth on a physical level. I would say university arguably is a holistic growth journey, but my
Yeah,
university had a gym. So
yeah.
I started being a little bit more active in the gym during that segment of my life. Fitness before that was just sport and curriculum. And it became an intentional decision when I got into university, and I was not with the same time management flexibility to just participate in extracurricular activities. It had to be on my own free time. I started pursuing the gym very seriously, and it empowered me internally to recognize that I was in a position to teach potentially exercise and movement and self awareness ultimately was the thing that I was strong with. on an athletic standpoint. It was something that I was confident in. And I took on a leadership role there with one of my classmates at the time and someone who is a dear friend today. Decided that she elected me as her coach for that time frame. And I didn't know again about personal training at that time. It was very early, but I took on a leadership role there, and it grew, it blossomed beautifully. I became a personal trainer in a gym, a corporate gym, and it was a role and responsibility that I took very seriously. I pride myself in the level of fitness I was able to take people into because of the dedication and the discipline and just establishing a foundational core value of awareness of body and health. And more recently, when gyms were closed for health purposes and just to try to support, longevity and making sure that everybody was safe, I recognized that I still needed to be what is a leader in my household and a leader in the space of my life where I was an entrepreneur and supporting all of the people who'd invested in my coaching style. I wanted to be able to meet them where we had communicated, where we had agreed that I would meet them. And so it became a very virtual style of coaching. And it was beautiful. I loved every moment of discovering what I was capable of on a virtual platform as a digital entrepreneur now. And I was able to have way broader reach by meeting people in other countries, even who invested in my coaching style. And then we slowly shifted away from the movement space and recognized that the dialogue and the communication that was happening, where again, where I mentioned the core values were the discipline and the awareness of the habits that were in place, started to be something I could discuss without any exercise. And that was a beautiful discovery all by itself. And I recognized my own ability to communicate how to level up. We can still talk about mobility and physical growth and personal transformation, but you don't need to be engaged in any sort of warm up or resistance training in order for you to get that message, for you to receive that message. And so here I am today, 2022, and it's a beautiful space now that things have opened up and I can step back into the gym or any other venue for that matter. I've been hosting seminars where I can still engage in the dialogue, and everyone is happy to learn and grow together. And the exercise piece is not mandatory. So whatever fitness level or whatever level of self-awareness that we're at, if we're not ready to commit to gym membership or personal coaching on a physical level, there's still room to see your personal growth holistically for whatever stage that you're at.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting kind of way. You kind of, from what I got from your story, um, you almost sort of fell into this, I guess, career, or not fell into it. It was kind of almost just one opportunity to, um, for you to do something or utilize your skill set as a leader and I guess influencer, in the context of, for example, personal training and then personal coaching in general, mindset coaching and stuff like that. So yeah, that's cool. That's something that a lot of people. So I wrote a blog recently.
Mm-hmm.
It was called "Learning How to Learn,"
Ah.
and it was basically on. It was very short, and I was really using it to practice my writing. But the idea of it was, when we learn a new skill,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the real benefits, half of the benefit from learning a new skill is actually the process of learning something new, and the process of failing and then analyzing yourself, trying again, failing, analyzing yourself, because those journey that happens all along any journey learning something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just
Absolutely.
get better at learning by learning new things. And sure, you learn new skills as well. Like, I can play basketball better, or I can, lift heavier, or, whatever thing. Um, but the actual process of learning, I'm pretty sure there's a scientific connection that opens up new pathways in your brain and all these sorts of things. And Yeah, and I feel like we can almost apply that to your situation where it was kind of you already had this skill set and you just applied it to different scenarios and different situations,
Exactly.
and that's like something that's so important. I think just in general in going through life and stuff. So
Agreed. Agreed.
uh,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem, no problem. Um, yeah, that's interesting because for myself, podcasting wasn't like I started listening to podcasts mostly maybe beginning of high school, mid high school,
Mm,
and they're
okay.
mostly comedy based
Ah,
podcasts. Yeah,
okay.
lots of funny ones.
I like that.
But yeah, from there, because I'm in third year university now. I'm going
Okay.
into my third
Congrats.
year. Thank you.
Congratulations. I love
Uh,
it.
and when I started uni, it was completely online. That was like right at the beginning of the
Mm,
pandemic. And
hmm.
I finished like my last year of high school was like March 2020.
Okay.
So basically, it was like the second half of the year was all online, and it was just
Wow.
all that craziness that was going on. And after that, especially when you go to from high school to university, we didn't really have we didn't have any graduation ceremony or prom or anything like that.
Ah, I
Um,
see.
and then we went straight to university from there, and it was just a really weird transition, especially for going from online to online. It's already a new it's already a new scenario, right?
Right, right.
um and I was I mean, being online, I was already so I'm living at home right now. um and I was planning to live at home just for throughout school anyway, and just
Okay.
commute. So it's already hard enough to make friends, generally. Um, but being usually a commuter doesn't really doesn't really help. It makes it a bit harder when you're not forced to make friends with people in a dorm, for example.
Right. That's
And
right.
also, we're online, so the only interactions we really have were in group projects.
Okay.
Um, and there are a few, maybe because I'm in a business program at U of T, and
Okay.
there's like three main projects, maybe two main projects per like um this focus business course. So like
Okay.
maybe there was like two to three main times to interact with people throughout the whole life of the course.
Wow.
And yeah, because during class, it's like there are huge classes, like especially in first year. Some of
Mhm.
my lectures had like 700 people in it, and it's like
Oh, that's right.
online, and it's it's hard to. It was fine. It was a tough first year, but usually this program first 2 years are tough anyway. So
Right, right. That's fair.
yeah, but yeah. Anyway, I was so basically I used those opportunities to try to force myself to talk to people after we worked on our group work,
Good for
because I was like,
you.
there's no other way that we can interact. Like there's literally,
Good for you for
um,
recognizing opportunity because yeah, I mean that would be a chance missed. So you definitely took it. That's awesome.
yeah. So and it's so interesting because we'd finish our work, and a few of us would have to leave, and then um, those who would stay back, I would just like, so how are things? We talk about the same stuff, school. Oh man, this online stuff is crazy. X course is crazy or whatever,
Yeah.
and then it's from there. It started from casual conversation, and then it would lead into like by the end, it'd just be like, where are you going in life? What does
Oh,
anything mean?
wow.
It would just
So
like
deep.
go so deep, yeah. On the first thing, I'm kind of one of those people. I do small talk for a bit, and then I get a little deep, I guess. I go
I
right
know
to
what you
that kind of
mean.
stuff.
I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Sometimes it's too deep for some people, but I mean, hopefully your vibe attracts your tribe and they're ready for it. But that's awesome. I like that. Very
yeah.
connective right at the start.
Yeah, and it was yeah, and because it was very interesting. Like people, like university, you meet so many different people versus high school, right? It's just people in your area.
Yes.
And especially I'm at U of T, and my program has a lot of international students from
Mm,
all around the world. So it's like it's already
beautiful.
a different experience within different communities within Canada.
That's
But
right. That's beautiful.
even like this, like I think what more than half my friends in university are international students. and it's like
Wow.
it like from China, from Thailand, from Japan. It's like from everywhere, and it's like such. I mean, you think about it, you talk about different experience. Like that's obviously one of the most different you can get. It's a completely different country across a pond, as you say, and
Yes, that's right. Full
and
immersion. I like that.
yeah, and it was cool just learning about people's experiences, and that's what kind of inspired me to start the podcast because
Mm,
I was thinking I'm like these are the kind of things people are craving, like everyone wants this sort of break from, especially being online. I know a lot of people felt this just burnout in general from
hmm.
working, because people at first thought it was like, oh, you're working from home, you'll have a better work-life balance, but sometimes that just means you're going to be working. You feel like you need to work at certain times when you usually wouldn't. Like, for example, people work 9 to 5. If you're working online all day, you're like, oh, I might as well finish this up. I have to do this. I'll just finish this up too. Versus
Absolutely.
if you're
Yeah.
going in the office or whatever, right? And
You're thinking it's over. It's not, there's no
there's no end.
specific time. Yeah. You're always at home. So, I mean, potentially the people who were already working from home had a bit of an edge because
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
already their normal, right? But for the newbies like me, definitely it took some addressing what I would call boundaries, just being very clear about scheduling and what time is for family and what time is for other commitments. Because yeah, when you have an amazing work ethic, it's easy
yeah,
to get lost in the time frames and just deciding, yeah, like you said, just finish the project, like however long it takes, might as well finish it.
yeah. And yeah, and I was like, people, like all these uni students are kind of lacking that sort of break from, especially like, we're just working all the time online. Anytime we go on Zoom, it's to go to a class or, that's basically what we were doing. And I was thinking like, I feel like people need something like this. And honestly, the reason why I started it wasn't really to, make money or, um, get famous or whatever. Like podcasting is, if you want to do those two things, podcasting is not the short game to play for that. Like podcasting is a long game to reach that point. And I was thinking, like I don't really care if anyone listens. It's just an excuse for me to talk to smart people and interesting people, you know, and just feed because I felt so good after having those conversations. Like it'd be sometimes we talk until like 2 in the morning because it'd just be the time difference. Oh yeah, because some of them they're international students, but they couldn't come to Canada because the whole COVID
Mm,
lockdown. So they're
that's
doing
right.
classes at like 3 in the morning, and it's like
That's right.
3 in the afternoon here, and it was just like
Yeah.
it was a whole mess. And I just remember like talking super late with them and feeling so good after we like ended the call. Like, man, this is what
Yep.
I was like. I wouldn't really call myself an extrovert, I guess, but it would be.
Mhm.
I feel like, I mean, humans are social animals, and
That's
we
right.
all gain energy from some level of social interaction. And
That's
obviously,
right.
you're kind of lacking that. You're sitting at home all day working or watching YouTube or doing something else.
Hmm.
And I was like, I kind of want to chase this feeling of having a like good conversation and going from casual to deep to introspective to learning new things about other people. So that really led me to start this, and I'm glad I did. It's kind of been at first I was very consistent. I apologize to all the listeners where I got like I mean second year was very busy. Um, and I changed it. It used to be every week I would post, but then the hardest thing is finding
Hmm.
guests to appear every week.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and because you have to be very like I have to be asking around every day, and then after I was like,
Yes.
okay, every 2 weeks makes a bit more sense for my schedule and stuff.
Okay.
But eventually, I'm gonna try and get it back to 1 week. If once I can get a good, maybe have a co-host or like one of my
Hmm.
friends, we make a joke. My high school friend Beck, he's on the podcast so often, like he might as well be a co-host at this point.
Wow. Look at that. Like you're
I
climbing the ladder right now. You got a
yeah, let's
co-host.
go. And yeah, but yeah. Anyway, I kind of just went. I don't know where I went on that one, but
I love
yeah,
it. I love it. You made some really amazing points. I think, first of all, I want to say thank you. I'm honored to be part of the group of people that you're open to having these conversations with because you mentioned that they were um, that they were interesting people, and that you were learning from them. And I think it's an honor to be in a position, not only to teach, but that you consider it interesting. So, so thank you for
Of
that.
course, of course.
And I agree. I mean, where energy is concerned, I think as social beings, we all need some form of that. And I believe that once you recognize that you decided to invest your time and organize something that works for you, I think that's brilliant. And yeah, I just think what you're doing right now is not just serving you, it's helping so many other people and the people that needed it. Like you were describing some of the individuals that you were working with, the students who were in another country and potentially at a different hour, and maybe we're looking for the connect. So it's almost selfless, like you recognized your own need, but also the need of others. And I
Thank
think
you,
that's
thank
beautiful
you.
all by itself. Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely.
All right, so okay, I have a few other questions here. So so you talked about you started personal training as like your first sort of well, not your first, but one of the um, areas where you applied your leadership skills. Talking more about your personal fitness journey, how was that started for you? You know, because I personally like um, I've been doing martial arts for a long time, like since I
Wow.
was 11.
Wow.
Um,
Impressive.
and thank you. And and you know, it's something that's just part. Like I make it like it's kind of funny. I talk about it every podcast, but you know, it's kind of what it's inspired by anyway. You know, the way it's a
Right.
samurai like concept.
Samurai. That's a big
Yeah,
deal. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Very high
So,
level.
and you know, yeah, because it's so you know it's important to me. Personal fitness and martial art. It's just part of my life, and I just want
Mhm.
to know how it is for yourself. Yeah, like
Yes.
how was your journey through personal fitness and that?
Well, I would agree with you. I think it is a very foundational focus for me. It's integral to the structure that I've built around my life. It's the one piece that's consistent, right? And I know that I was lucky to have an active childhood. I mean, I've spoken to people who did not have a very active childhood. Like you said, 11. It's quite young to be immersed in something that's so disciplined. And I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful for developing character in a young person. And I think when I was growing up, I did have a very active father. So my dad was always taking me to play some sport, whether it was bike riding in a trail or learning how to rollerblade, or I participated in swimming lessons. I'm grateful to my parents for putting me in swimming lessons, and my dad could swim and my mom was not as
Hmm.
confident in the water, but they were both so committed to the development of these skills in their children. And I'm so grateful that they put so much effort into making sure that we had exposure to all of these creative and physical outlets. And it's shaped how I look at fitness because it's such a big part of my entire childhood that I cannot imagine a time where I would be without that movement. And we were committed to a schedule where the swimming lessons were twice a week, and all the things that came with it. As a young girl, my hair was grown long, and it required that you had to commit to the hygiene component, like there's chlorine in that
Yeah.
water. You got to make sure you get your shampoo and your conditioner, and make sure that you're managing health, because hair health, especially in for the cultural background that I'm in, we put a lot of precedence on what is deemed the hygiene and the appropriate hair health and practice, like the ritual around hair. So cultural, it's so ingrained in our culture. So it was a very immersive process for me to recognize what it's going to mean. If I was going to commit to this type of activity, I better make sure my hydration's on point. I got to make sure
Yeah.
my leave-in conditioner is sorted out so the curls can stay curly and coily,
Yeah.
and I don't lose any of the natural oils. And it was just a very immersive process. So yeah, like you were saying, learning all of these new skills required. It was a multi-dimensional learning. Like it opened the door to so many other avenues of self-awareness. And once I got into sport as a school, I want to say elementary school. It was a lot of volleyball, basketball, track and field. And I then pursued what was supposed to be ongoing into high school. I think I had to take a bit of a break somewhere around grade 11, grade 12. And boy, did I feel it. I stopped the extracurricular sporting activity for what I believe to be a more immersive focus on the scholastic element. Like I wanted to be grounded in my studies, and I think grade 12 was looked upon as a very a year that would really have a higher impact on your eligibility for university. And so,
Yeah.
as a result, I made the decision to take a break from my extracurricular sporting commitments, and I said, you know what, let's buckle down and get focused on all the courses that I was a part of. And ironically, it had the opposite effect. I was far more distracted. I didn't have the same, I want to say, zest for experience, because it took something that I didn't realize at the time was a big part of my life away. And I was absent to that outlet, which really does ignite for me a lot of creative awareness and a lot of natural, like, I think, expression that is necessary for a holistic life, for a healthy, balanced life. More important than the movement itself, but the mindset and the mental health. I think what it did was it helped me recognize the value of all of those sporting activities that I was participating in just leisurely, right? And
Hmm.
it came to the point where I had to start integrating it myself. I said, you know what? In high school, grade 12, we end up with a spare. If you have enough credits all the way through. I did also some summer school, so I fast tracked through my high school years. I had more credits than was required for graduation, and it left me with some spares, and that would be like a spare time frame that would have otherwise fit a course, maybe like an hour and a half um, each semester through the 4 day or the 5 day period. So I ended up with that extra time, and I decided to commit to working out because I hadn't involved myself in any curricular activities ahead of time. I just had to create a window for myself, and I filled it with movement. A lot of people spent their spare doing something else, and I decided,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And I
Yeah.
decided, I said, you know what? Let me go get myself sorted with some movement. I got my jump rope out. My mom and dad had a treadmill in our basement. Grateful again that my parents even like that they had that equipment available. And I had like an exercise ball. I think there was some type of awareness of the value of having these exercise props and support in the home, obviously because I'd been exposed to movement beforehand. So there was an exercise ball, there was jump rope, there were all sorts of props and things available. So I makeshift a little mini gym in my basement, and I got
Yeah.
home. I got home in time. I'm like, I got to get at least 45 minutes in. And I did my workout. It was intense. I got the sweat in. I did the stretch. I did the warm up. I was living that lifestyle before I even knew it was something that I could pursue as a career. And it was beautiful. It was glorious. I tell you, I was so refreshed. I got back to my school. Thankfully, I was quite it was within a really close proximity that I could just like run home and
Yeah.
run back. So it was beautiful. And I got back, got into class, focused more than I would have ever been. And I just carried that on. Really, I was so invested in my own personal health and movement and the value and the focus and the joy it infused in me to be excited about whatever I was doing that I just kept that habit. And now it wasn't something I needed to rely on an external force. I didn't need an institution to support me with it. I was going to do it regardless. And that's what I carried into university. And I recognized again because I think it was intramural soccer that was available. I was going to pursue that. And the schedules for the games were completely outside of my commitment because of travel. Like you were saying, the commute time, it's hard to meet people.
Hmm.
I had
Yeah.
to commit to that back and forth, and then the classes. And I was already factoring my meals between classes. I was so passionate about health, and the nutrition was a big component. So there was no room for the extracurricular intramural soccer. So I just decided to go to the gym, and really, I think that's where my journey kind of took off because I recognized that it was a career. There are people who call themselves personal trainers making a living out of supporting other people in reaching their own higher level of fitness. And I have to thank one of the university, I think he's an alumni now. He would have been someone who influenced me. His name is Chris. He influenced me because he was getting his personal trainer certification during the years that I was going to the gym regularly. And what I discovered was through him that I could be one of those people in the magazines, those bodybuilders in the magazines with the perfect physiques. And I saw that
Yeah.
and I said, oh, that really lit me up. I saw those, like, they were perfect physiques to me. Some of them beyond what I had ever desired to meet, but some of them was it just the aspects of the symmetry and the muscle development and probably what it represented to get to that point really did speak to me. And just from on a soul connection, I thought, wow, I think this is something that I want. And in fact, I didn't even recognize the competitive component yet at that point. All I saw was the personal training and the dedication. So right away, I started handing resumes out to gyms in my home area, and then I extended the reach beyond to the downtown Toronto area, and I got a job at a gym. I was juggling that simultaneously with some work at Nike at the Nike
Okay.
store in the Eden Center, which was fun. So I got the athletic apparel and I was
Cool.
fully
Yeah.
suited up. It was all appropriate and everything was in line. I worked at Bebe Sport for a little bit as well. I think it's a brand not commonly known now, but I think it was Fate at the time, PH8, the digit. And they had athletic apparel as well. It was a boutique. And I just surrounded myself with the environment of fitness and health and everything to do with it. And I hired a personal trainer myself by the name of Jonathan Wiseman. And his his style of teaching and leadership and the environment that I was in that gym really did support my ability to become immersed in high level health and fitness modalities. And I'm such an honor because I was exposed to so many leaders in the industry at that time. It would have been 2010. And That's now 12 years ago. But I literally had the mentorship of like a dream mentorship community. And I was able to just absorb, just learn, like you said, learn, absorb, apply. And it led me to my first competition in 2013. So 2013, I did what's called a physique competition with at the time it was called the OPA, Ontario Physique Association. And on my first entry, I took home first place. And
Wow, nice.
thank you. That was the beginning. I think that was when I identified the values of what my dedication had represented. I didn't know at the time. A friend had invited me to join her in the pursuit for exploring physique competition. I had zero interest. I think at the time I literally was caught off guard when she asked me if I would join her, and I said yes. And in so doing, I set myself up for this beautiful awakening, if you will, of what it was going to mean to dedicate myself to fitness and what it was going to mean to dedicate myself to the pursuit of personal growth. And yeah, I think fitness for me, the sport and the routine and the structure was symbolic of my ongoing commitment to personal growth, whether it was muscle growth,
Yeah.
mobility, longevity and health, um, endurance, internal function, my capacity to perform, it was just all very symbolic. That's the foundation of it all. And I think, I mean, if that answers your question, I think that was really,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
really the
that was
journey,
great.
the start of it all. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool to see because I when it comes to well, martial art in the sense well, I don't know if you know Muay Thai.
I'm familiar with Muay Thai. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've not practiced it myself, but I am familiar.
Yeah, so that was a martial art I did for I did since I was 11, and an important aspect of Muay Thai is not just the actual technical training, but making your body strong.
Mm,
And that's something a lot of because Muay Thai, I've gone into the history before, but basically it was originally a war martial art. It was meant for the battlefield, and then it was modernized for the ring in
Okay.
1920 or something like that.
Okay.
And with that came a specialization in the sport, and a sort of like, you compare fighters from back then till now. There's a big difference. um,
I would imagine. Yeah.
yeah, and then the progression of the sport, better training, more money going to athletes. Because, in Muay Thai, even still now in Thailand, like kids start fighting at the age of 8. Like,
Wow.
yeah, and it's not like they sometimes these kids are making the money for their family. Like they literally their parents don't need to work. These kids are like 10 years old and they're fighting in a ring, full contact for their family, no gear. And it's kind of
Wow.
crazy.
That's
Like,
very crazy. I'm
could
moved.
you imagine a child? Like they're literally children. And it's like, I mean, it's commendable obviously to them, but it's also kind of in some ways kind of sad that they have to do this.
Absolutely. I have two children
Um,
of my own, boys,
yeah,
and they're 3 and 1. And to be fair, my heart, if I could imagine either of them doing something like that, uh, it would take some part of me to really have to, um, I want to say, better prepare. I'm not there yet. Let's just say that I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
that I could see that happening in this current moment. Definitely some personal growth that would have like to let go and let my child basically fight a what I perceive to be a grown man's battle.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was like when you're talking about personal fitness, because that's something I started a bit later in, because in Muay Thai we do conditioning and sort of things like that, but less. It's more body weight stuff. It's less
Mm-hmm.
weight training. It
Mm-hmm.
was mostly, in Thailand, it's like, okay, 100 push-ups, everyone go down together or whatever. Pull-ups and just easy bodyweight exercises, because not all gyms really could afford weights.
That's right. That's right.
And all you had were your training partners and yourself, and you just had to make it work. And after when I really started getting into, I guess, weight training in general, was actually I took a course in 10th grade called Mind and Muscle.
Mind and muscle. I like
Yeah.
it.
It was basically a weight training, because I went to a school that was a sports focused school, so we had a really nice facility.
Beautiful.
Um, it wasn't brand new. Like our school is old, but it was definitely, we had like a really nice facility for the size of our school.
Yes.
And and I was like, I've always been interested in fitness and stuff like that, so I'll take the opportunity to take this course. And even before that, actually, in ninth grade is when I started, I guess, trying out. Because I was doing
Uh-huh.
bodyweight stuff at home before that in like middle school, and then
Okay.
once I had access to the gym, I started going after school. And for me, you always hear these horror stories of people going to the gym like don't know what to do and they hurt themselves and all that kind of stuff. Luckily for me, I'm one of those people who like over research things,
Okay.
like to the point where it's like a little bit I get overloaded with information.
Okay. Fair.
So
Fair.
yeah, so I looked up so many different things, and at least I didn't injure myself in the beginning. I didn't have like some
Congrats.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a big
Um,
deal. Not injuring yourself is a huge accomplishment.
yeah, and there's this coach at our school. He was a football coach, and I swear this is his real name, Coach Musselman. His name is Musselman.
Oh, how
He is,
fitting.
yeah, and he would keep the gym open after school just so kids could work out, because he would work out as well.
Okay.
And yeah, he was a power lifter, right? He was like old school, six movements,
Ah.
that's all, just compound movements. He's like, you don't need anything else, just bench, deadlift, squat, pull up, row,
I
press,
believe
total
him. I
press.
believe him.
Yeah, and he was crazy. Like he'd be like doing 300 pounds on like bench or something. Like, he was like
Wow.
ridiculously jacked.
Wow.
But yeah, we were lucky he was there, because he taught us all these compound movements, like whoever
Mm-hmm.
was there at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it kept us safe, right? Because
That's right.
I mean, you do a deadlift wrong and you have your back curved, you don't want to crack your friggin' back in half,
Where
like you
it
see
could be
so
a
many
very
injuries.
big, yeah, there the outcome is it can be a very impactful. So yeah, that's awesome that you had somebody there to support you
Yeah.
with safety.
Oh yeah, we were lucky that we actually learned the proper movements, not by trial and error.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then yeah, and then in grade 10 when I took that course, mind and muscle, um, that's when it was basically like a intro to weight training course, and there are
Mm,
three separate sort of goals or not goals, styles, training styles.
hmm.
And then we first started out with like the simplest in a sense, which was powerlifting.
Okay.
So low rep, high weight movements.
Yes.
And then went to bodybuilding, focus movements, and then there was muscle endurance, I guess, and
Hmm.
then at the end was like sport specific functional training.
Hmm.
A functional training. I guess
Yeah,
technically all
yeah.
training is functional, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It's more
Yeah.
dynamic, I think, because it mimics like movements you would do in your day to day.
Yeah. And from there is when I really started getting interested in it. Because for me, like I was never attracted to at first I think like a lot of people when they first started they are attracted to the bodybuilding aspect.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I want to get super jacked and have a sick physique, big arms and all that kind of stuff. But for me, coming from a martial arts background, like if you have no ability to, move your body in X way, and
Hmm.
actually apply that muscle, like
Hmm.
to me, it felt like no, there's no point. Like if I just look a certain way, that doesn't matter to me at all. I don't care how I look as long as I'm improving myself in terms of the how I can use it essentially. So from that point, I started doing basically like compound lifts. Like I did like a powerlifting program. I wrote a simple one, and from there, that's when I was like, yeah, this is what I like. Like I don't care about doing 100 bicep curls and all that kind of stuff. I want to be like, I want to be able to do a muscle up. I want to
Yes.
lift as much as I can on X movement and stuff, and get more explosive. And you know, I I've kind of fallen off from that because of the pandemic. I didn't have access to gym, so I was just doing
Hmm.
like whatever like 15-pound weights I had at home, so I couldn't
Yeah,
really do
right.
like max deadlift at home. But
The
just
home gym.
yeah, yeah, I just but yeah, like that. I've always liked that aspect because it's like especially for martial art, there's a I guess I would say a kind of problem with the martial arts where people think that size and strength doesn't matter. Um, and oh, one second, somebody's calling. Let me just. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So there's a problem. People think size and strength doesn't matter, like on the outside, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, people. That's what kind of attracts people to martial art is that you can best someone who is X size and you're only this big. You don't have to be athletic or whatever. But the problem with that is that's just an excuse not to become more strong. And there's a lot of martial arts to say this technique will best X person, and you don't have to
Ah.
do all this. And you know, I was lucky with Muay Thai that they didn't have that idea because
Hmm.
it was a ring sport, so there were weight classes, and there's definitely a big difference between someone who is 50 pounds heavier, especially with me because I'm probably 135, like soaking wet, as they say, and 135 soaking wet,
You and
5'8".
I weigh the same amount. I have to tell you
Yeah,
that. We are in the same bracket of the soaking wet, like the
yeah,
lighter weight
yeah.
category. Yeah.
And especially when I was like, when I first started sparring,
Hmm.
like seriously, maybe when I was 14, like there
Hmm.
were no kids, like there were no teenagers,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
these are grown men
That's
essentially,
right. That's right.
and everyone is at least like 150, 160.
Hmm.
And there's a big difference, like the way you fight someone versus like when there's a big size difference and they have skill. Like on
Hmm.
paper, someone who's lighter, shorter, compared to someone who's bigger, and stronger with the same amount of skill, on paper, the smaller person always loses. Always. Right?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense to me. I totally understand.
Yeah. I mean, and I know I always try to bridge that gap. I don't need to get like I can't obviously get taller anymore, but I try to bridge that gap in terms of skill. So
Yes.
I really developed my like evasiveness and trickiness, I guess. And I was just glad that I had that sort of idea that training yourself, making your body strong, is, I mean, one of the main aspects of improving yourself in a martial art. Because if
Agreed.
your body's not strong, how can your technique be strong? Like you can
Agreed.
have the
Agreed.
perfect technique, but if if your body is weak, your technique is going to be poor no matter what. You know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You will not be able to uphold whatever that technical component is if someone is stronger than you. Um, it would negate sometimes the technique because that strength can overpower. And I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. And excited to inform you actually that when I was telling my story, I think I started from the grade 12 mark when I was on the spares, but in grade 11, that was when I was familiar with what is the wrestling, not Muay Thai, um,
Okay.
the wrestling aspect. I pursued wrestling. I was on the female wrestling team in grade 11, and that was my last commitment to sport. And that was the last year that I committed to sport. And I don't know that my mindset was in a space of trying to go the distance per se with regards to getting bigger and stronger, but that might have been my uh, sort of baseline understanding of what you're discussing today, where weight class is concerned for organizing people according to who would be the appropriate opponent. And my first experience with technicalities and takedowns and being bigger and stronger and tricky, clever, and
Yeah.
in strategy, right? Because if you're smart, you'll do a lot better with your technique and your strength as well. So yeah, your description of your experience, I feel like that resonates with me. I definitely can appreciate the value of strength and a sound ideology surrounding um, your awareness of that, and not just seeking the superficial values.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't mind my camera's frozen, so I swear I'm
Okay,
not
okay.
making a weird face.
Not
uh,
to worry, not to worry.
yeah. Yeah, that's actually cool because the thing is, ironically, my school was it was a sports school, but we didn't have a wrestling team. That was one of the first things I
Okay.
wanted to do when I came to high school. I was like, I don't want to
Is
play
that right?
football, like I don't care about playing football or anything like that. Like I wanted to
Yeah.
go on the wrestling team, and we didn't have a wrestling team, and I was like, "Ah,
Aw.
but it's
So
like
Muay
it's
Thai
fine.
was your second choice. Muay Thai was the plan B.
Well, no, well, because I was already doing Muay Thai at that time, but I was like,
Oh,
I
okay,
can
okay.
I can, because wrestling is such a fundamental aspect of fighting, in general,
Hmm.
and we can
Is
even
that
see that.
right? I did
Yeah,
not know that.
yeah. And you know, wrestling is the oldest martial art in the world because I mean I think they have the oldest form of it. They have these paintings on the walls of two ancient humans wrestling, like they're cave paintings,
Oh,
and
wow.
if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. If to show dominance between, for example, other humans, you don't want to
Hmm.
kill. You don't want to kill the
No,
other human because you're a tribe, right? Like you're literally reducing your chance of survivability by killing other people. And
that's
at
right.
that time, we didn't, even though our cognitive thinking probably wasn't at our height, we were smart enough to think like, okay, we need as many people as possible to support each other. But sometimes you got to show
Hmm.
each other who's boss, right?
That's
And how do you
right.
do that? You take the person down, you pin them to the ground. It's like, okay, if you were serious, I would have died. Like this is a
Hmm.
loss, and
Hmm.
that's a fundamental thing. Like humans are made to grapple. Like that's why we
Okay.
have these fingers like this, and our even babies' grip strength is super strong. Like a baby holds your pinky, like it's not like you can just open it up.
That's absolutely right. I can attest to that. The babies and the grip strength, it's unreal. And
Yeah, they
and
grab
they
your
will,
hair.
yeah, oh, they'll grab whatever is within reach. You're absolutely right. The grips, it's really admirable. I think that as a new parent, it can be shocking in some scenarios. You can be very astonished at the degree that you have to work because this is an infant, right? And you're thinking,
Yeah, yeah,
well, I can best the infant, but sometimes, yeah, you really got to put in your effort because you're trying to be, like you said, where the intention is not to cause harm, and so there you are trying to unpry
yeah.
the brand new baby fingers.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's quite intriguing. Yeah, that's such a good point.
And like for example, the striking aspect didn't come till probably, hundreds of years later, or probably a million years later after we, started becoming, because weapons were involved in human society for so long. Um,
Right.
and, for example, striking with fists was really uncommon. Um,
Okay.
um, Really, it was introduced by um, bare knuckle boxing in the UK and Ireland, which was,
Okay.
it was like an underground sport in the 17, 1800s. You see
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
those like pictures of the old timey boxers, like, going like this and with their big
Yeah, yeah,
mustaches and
yeah.
stuff.
You know,
and and that was a very, I'm sure there are other aspects, like there are other hand fighting sort of striking sports at other times, but boxing was really one of the first that kind of introduced
hmm
that to like on a grand scale and really specialized
hmm
in that because people weren't carrying around knives and
that's right.
swords and clubs in 18th century England,
Hmm.
and the guns weren't really the easiest to carry around back then either. Well, okay, that's
Hmm.
incorrect, but they weren't, what we have now. It took a
The
while to
convenience, the
reload.
convenience factor. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
The convenience factor took some time to get to where it is today. Yeah.
And, and then it really developed from there, and it's so interesting how, like, for example, like wrestling, you see in mixed martial arts, for example, our wrestlers are some of the highest, have some of the highest win percentages in the UFC because wrestling is all about control. And even like people underrate the idea of actually grappling, like in general, because the thing in striking is a lot more risk. There's a lot more chance
Hmm.
involved, right? For example, in a street altercation, like any random person can swing a punch and knock someone out. Like no matter how poor their technique is, if they're big and strong and you get hit by it, like you
Hmm.
can get seriously hurt.
Yeah.
And even if you're very skilled, like you can't react in every scenario. Like even myself,
Right.
and there's always that risk. And in comparison to grappling, having control in a position, for example, a full Nelson position, is like,
Hmm.
I mean, it's very difficult to get out of that position in the first place. And, humans are made to grab and hold, we're
Right.
made
That's absolutely
hang
right.
onto trees and, that's where we came from. And it's hard, very
Yeah.
difficult to break that grip. And it's really effective for um, police, law enforcement, and
Hmm.
security because you're not like really injuring people, right? You're just control.
Right.
You can take them to the ground, arrest them,
Yeah.
do whatever you need to do,
Yeah.
without actually permanently like for example, like I punched someone in the head, they could get concussed, fall on the ground, break their neck, like all these sorts of things. Other factors come into play with striking,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's one thing I always liked about wrestling. Like, because Muay Thai has, a grappling aspect, a stand-up grappling aspect,
Hmm.
and you know, as I delve deeper into martial arts in general in the last
Hmm.
few years, I've been trying to understand, like for example, jujitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've dabbled a bit
Hmm.
in that, and
That's beautiful. Yeah.
judo and all these other grappling arts. It's just it's it's like the yin and yang of fighting, right? Striking, grappling, and
Yes. Yes.
they're two very different things, but they can't be without each other. There's grappling and
Agreed.
striking, striking and grappling. Like even in
Agreed.
boxing, at some point they're gonna tie up in the clinch and they have to move, right? They have to do something there, or else the
Agreed.
ref is gonna yell at them. And even in wrestling, you can't do something lightly, right? You have to jam your
Right.
hand. You have to even
You
they,
have to
they
put
use term
everything into it.
Yeah, like you have, for
Yeah.
example, like punch your hand through, they'll say, for example, take it
Yeah.
to a different position when you're clinching up. And, you know, it's so interesting how connected things are, you know? And
Absolutely.
I mean,
Everything is connected.
I know, and it's just it's so when once you see something like that, I find this happens when you go so deep into one thing and then you try to venture
Mhm.
out to other things. When you see similarities, um,
Absolutely.
and it's just so cool to see that, you
It
know.
really is. It's so intriguing. I definitely agree. It's very rewarding. When you speak into wrestling the way that you do, it does have me thinking about the sort of the synergy in the weight training that I offer, because I think grappling has always been a foundational strength of mine, and that the wrestling ended up being something like my first sort of contact sport that put me in the awareness of it. And I happened to be well good enough that our team went to OFSA that year,
Okay.
and it was a beautiful discovery. You know, again, like you were saying, meeting new people,
Mm-hmm.
sharing the same interests. I have three younger brothers, so I would often test my
Yeah.
skill on them.
Yeah.
I had to. How else do you practice outside of practice, right? And then because they developed, like, they were taller than me and weighed more than me at the time. I would have been in grade 11, and so even like my brother, who would have been in like grade 6 or 7, was still like easily 6 feet, and
Yeah.
just like definitely outside of my weight class. But because of the technique and my strength that I'd been practicing, I was putting him in takedowns and holds. We weren't allowed to do full Nelson when I was competing
Yeah, yeah.
um, in school, of course, for the nature of the how impactful it would be. But we were allowed to do the half Nelson. And what I really enjoyed was, again, becoming self-aware, that inner confidence that's developed on a mental level, and
Yeah.
the core strength and the sheer knowledge of my ability, what I'm capable of accomplishing if I was in direct combat or or impact
Yeah.
sport with anyone, if I felt threatened, or just knowing that and walking around with that knowledge, that awareness, that self-awareness. It makes for a just a more sound interaction, especially in high conflict situations. Like if someone was having a verbal disagreement with me, I think there was just some inner peace that I had, that
Yeah.
I could be very non-conflict. I think, to speak to what you were talking about regarding weaponry and the style of combat, I would argue that the defensive style of combat for me is the highest appeal, because it supports you being fully aware of your authentic, the capacity that you have within you to be safe no matter the scenario, that you can just offer that defensive, like, I will stop you from creating any harm, but that I don't need to harm you to do that.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, with the human the early ability to not kill part of your own team, your
Yeah.
own tribe, but just let them know who the boss is. I think that really does, on a I guess a subconscious level within me, that because I had that experience, I felt that, and I take that inner confidence with me through all of the other development, the physical and mental development that um, I do seek today, even with weight training. My favorite exercises are the ones that develop these grappling skills with grip strength. Like, I love a pull up, anything to do
Mm-hmm.
with pull ups, lifting my own body weight. I'll often attach additional weights, like plates, to my body to like support me with that additional strength. Potentially now, if I had to carry like my child with me or something, and climb up
Yeah.
a cliff, whatever these
Yeah, yeah.
hypotheticals are, whatever we need to tell ourselves in our mind to like push to the next level.
Yeah.
Certainly, I feel like I'm adequately prepared for something of that nature, on account of I that foundational approach to the grappling and the personal development and the innate um, human function that you described. I think it's such a beautiful awareness, and I love that you've done the research. It feeds me, it fuels me, it ignites me in this conversation to be able to speak to you, and that you bring so much insight in terms of the research that you've done. I think that's beautiful. I love that you're speaking into it. So with the statistics and the reference to time frame. So thank you. I feel educated. I'm being educated by you now. So thank you for the information.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Don't quote me on anything I say, please. I'm
I
not
had
an
to follow
expert.
up. I had to cross check. I got to cross check all the time
Disclaimer.
frames you give me. Yeah.
I don't know anything. Um,
We're here to learn. We're here to learn. I love that.
yeah. Yeah, that's super cool that you're, that's, you know, that whole idea of self-preservation, my crew, as we would say, is in Thai, which means instructor or teacher.
Okay.
He would say, crew Nick, I had him on before, and he would say there are, what is it, five
Hmm.
levels of, or four levels of interaction between people
Okay.
and confrontation. So there's first is survive. There's a reason why it's first.
Yeah.
Survive. Second is to compete.
Okay.
And that's when like he would use that for example, when you're in sparring, this is when you compete, you learn with each other, but you're not here to win against, like you're here to improve yourself, not hurt each other. The
That's
third
right.
is to dominate. Dominate
Hmm.
is within a confrontation or within a fight or within a session, a hard sparring session where you have to
Hmm. Hmm.
act in that way. And then, sorry, I think there were, there's five, I believe. So then there's injure, to injure someone.
Ooh, I've
And
not thought about uh like combat in that way. That's interesting. Okay.
yeah, to injure. And then, um, sorry, it was hurt. It wasn't compete. It was hurt after dominate, injure, and then finally kill, which is the highest
Okay.
level of, combat, highest intensity. And he's like, he would always say like you have to moderate between those levels, right? What
Mm.
level are you at in what situation? Your
Hmm.
first thought should be survive,
Hmm.
preservation, right?
Hmm.
And ironically, the more you train within a martial art, which is in itself the study of violence.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a it becomes, ironically, you become less violent.
That's right.
And so many martial arts. I mean, and obviously, this is not statistically based, but just my personal experience. But
Hmm.
martial artists like yourself, right? Wrestling is a
That's
martial
right.
art for sure,
Yeah.
and my fellow martial artists who have delved deeply into it, or even at some level, are some of the most peaceful people I've ever met.
It's that inner
And
confidence. I totally agree. I totally agree.
it's like something. It's so interesting that something so intense, so physically, like being physically combative with another person, even in like like going lightly, the impact it has on a person's sort of social interactions. Like I don't really get like in these sort of I don't really get mad like that. You know what I mean? Like it's not worth it because the severity. Like I could die. Like it, because people think they know it, but once you have to be in a situation where it's actually a possibility that you could be hurt or seriously injured, you know? And I think, most people don't have that experience, and it's valuable to have that experience in a controlled context, right? Like in a
Agreed.
competition on the mats with an educated supervisor, like someone who knows what's going on. And it's better to get it out then than in the street. And
Absolutely.
and I'm just glad that I had my parents put me through all these, put me into these programs, and it helped me develop. And thankful to my teachers and instructors who actually, pushed me forward through this because it's been a journey, like really
That's
went from
right.
being really shy as a kid to I wouldn't say I'm super, outgoing now, but that confidence of like no, really, like I can get through anything. Especially like when
That's
you
right.
go against someone, like when you're sparring with someone who's way bigger than you. Like I was sparring like
Hmm.
that for at least 2 years before
That's
another
right.
teen joined our sparring sessions, right? And it's
Beautiful
like,
experience.
and because that's how it's probably going to be in, if I was ever in a situation, it's probably going to be someone's bigger than me. Um, and people don't realize, if you don't have the technique, there is a gap between someone who is, even if they're smaller, right?
That's
And
right.
it's one of the most satisfying things. You know, it's kind of the underdog mentality. It kind of feeds your ego a little bit, but
It
when you
does.
have,
It does. It definitely does.
yeah, but it feels good when you can best someone, and it's not just because of your strength, you know. And when
That's
in
right.
the times when I do go against or spar against someone who's smaller than me, I try my
Hmm.
best not to use strength in that scenario because I know how it feels to be on the receiving end, and you know, my
Hmm.
it might not feel hard to me,
Hmm.
right? But it feels hard for the other person, right? Like getting a light jab from a 280-pound guy is gonna hurt a lot. Like it's gonna hurt no matter what. You know, it doesn't matter if they think it's light because they don't
Yeah.
know their strength, right? They're not on the receiving end.
Everything is relative. Everything is relative.
Exactly, and it gives you that ability to actually like, because when you're just using strength, you don't really improve in those scenarios,
That's
right?
right. I'll agree with you there. I think that there's some sort of there's a humility, and then there's a respect associated with recognizing that you were very technical, and whatever the outcome is, you can really take that learned experience and carry it forward into the next interaction, into the next sparring experience. Yeah, you definitely get better with your technique when someone is bigger and stronger than you, and you're looking to focus on refining that technique. It's another opportunity to grow, and you're such
Yeah,
a seeker. I love how you seek to learn because it shows in your communication style, and what you're speaking into. And I just gratitude for you, and the way that you've chosen
thank
to
you,
share
thank you.
your knowledge. Yeah, because it really is. It says a lot about the style of thinking, and your approach to all of these interactions is dynamic. You're constantly acquiring new skills and ways to apply. And I'll agree, technique, seeking to pursue these wins, if you will, through technique will always support improved strength, right? Regardless, but it's not the same the other way around.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true because there's something, a concept that's used in karate, and it's called the learner's mind. And I forget the
Mm,
saying in actually in Japanese, but essentially it's, you should have, to truly improve and, you know, keep going within a martial art for your life long, you have to have
mm-hmm.
a learner's mind. And you
That's
can't
right.
lose that. You have to have the mind of the beginner from
Mm-hmm.
the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you lose that sort of wonder and wanting to learn, you know, then you stop improving, right? But that, I feel like that kind of changes from the wonder into discipline, and then it just becomes
Mm-hmm.
part of your life. You know what I mean?
That's
Especially
right.
with
That's right.
martial art, because you know motivation wanes, right? We can't rely on motivation. Um, you know, I talked about it in that blog, but it was, you know, motivation goes up and down, but you'll thank yourself if you keep yourself disciplined, you know,
That's right.
when during those times where you don't feel motivated to do
That's
something,
right.
and you'll thank yourself after when you've, you know, regained that sort of feeling, um, that sort of motivation, you know, comes back. You'll
Yes.
thank yourself
Yeah.
like you didn't stop, you know, like you don't have to start
Yeah.
over. You just keep going, right? And
The
that's
fire. I
something,
call it the
yeah,
fire because it just like you feel like, okay, I'm more excited again. I feel
yes.
that excitement, and you're just charged and ready to go full force, and everything's in cycles. So you're constantly ebbing and flowing as life goes, right? And so, yeah, as soon as you hit that fiery stage again, it's truly gratitude for your discipline, and recognizing the value, and how exponential it is, because even a small commitment on a day that you have the lowest energy or the lowest motivation, if you will, translates to something so much more powerful. Maybe the detail of that day or that moment or that hour is the tidbit, the learning, that really impacts the direction that you go in after. When the fire returns,
Yeah.
that bit, might be the piece that really sets things forward even more. So yeah, it's really interesting how life teaches us these lessons.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And as I go through my life, like I haven't even I'm turning 20 in August, and it's
All
like,
right,
yeah, and it's
coming up.
yeah, it is coming up. And you know, I feel like that switch from 19, like a teen, when your parents or a relative asks, like, you're on your birthday, and they're like, "Oh, do you?" My dad always asks me this, like, "So how do you feel? Do you feel different now that you've turned?" I mean, it's like 1 day difference. And it's like it
I feel
doesn't
like I
feel.
love your dad. I love your dad. That's the best question.
He's like, "Do you feel different?" It's like most of the time as a kid, you're like, "No." It's like, why would I feel different? I just literally 1 day difference between yesterday, technically. But I feel that trend. This is the first time where I kind of feel I will be feel different, from 19 to
Absolutely.
20. Um,
Absolutely.
because teen to, I mean, I've been a teen for 10 years.
That's right.
Well, not
Your
10 years,
experience.
bad math, but 7 years. Um, and it's, you just, I mean, the sort of thing like 20s, it feels like, okay, this is the time to grind. I mean, it's always
I
that
can I
time.
can appreciate that. Yeah, but you're entering what is, I mean, people would consider it a milestone because it's even given a different bracket in terms of reference to the age. It's called your 20s. So like you're entering a new sector in the growth and development. And so I think it's symbolic. It's a representation of what you're gonna decide to do with that decade of time. And I mean, if you're gonna call it the grind, and that's what it's gonna be,
Yeah.
I think you get to decide. You get to decide what you're going to do with that time. And I think that's why there's so much value there because now I think potentially for the first time as an adult and someone who's, you know, so far into their learning experience, you have more of a decision, um, more impact on the decision that you're making. It's
Hmm.
it's 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 you. It's coming from you. So this 20s is Sejin. It's you. It's not
Yeah.
what mom and dad said.
Yep.
And so that's a big deal. Yeah, if you decide it's going to be the grind, it's going to be the grind. But absolutely, it's going to be what you decide. And I think that's where the power is. It's super inspiring if you let it be, and it's absolutely symbolic of what your future holds. And it sounds like it's going to be impressive and full of learning.
Hopefully, hopefully. You hear that, other 20-year-olds?
Yes,
You
listen
guys
up.
just turned in 20. Listen to this wisdom right now, okay?
Sajin, look out for Sajin though, because he's making a really huge. I want to say what you're
Thank you.
doing is you're showing us the way, Sajin. So thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up at this point. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you all for listening to this episode with Nicole. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great episode. Just good vibes all around. And
Amazing. Thank you. It's been
yeah,
an honor.
yeah, no problem. And if anyone wants to check out your services or your what you offer, where can they
Mhm.
find that?
Right now, I am actively on Instagram at Nicole Ho-Sang Fitness, NicoleHosang Fitness. And I'm new to the YouTube space. I'm on YouTube now as Holistic Nikki, Nikki. And I'm also on Facebook, Nikki Ho-Sang, Nikki. There's a hyphen, Sang. I've got my display pick up. So, you can see the uniform imagery there across the board, and
Nice.
yeah, I'm hoping to show up on some more platforms, some more media platforms, just to kind of broaden the scope a bit as I get more aware of how to navigate all of the digital spaces. But absolutely, it's coaching, it's mindset, it's education, it's it's support for discovering self in a very authentic way, and it's empowerment. So yeah, come check me out. Any of the ones that are convenient for you, that are more natural for you. Instagram is where I'm most active, and I'm happy to respond personally in the DMs for all of those media platforms. So yeah, feel free to reach out. You're going to be speaking to me.
Awesome. So yeah, once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you for Nicole for coming on. If you like this episode, give it a like, save it, download it on Spotify, share it with your friends, do all that kind of stuff. And yeah, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.